By adding Josh Downs on day 2 of the 2023 NFL Draft, did the Indianapolis Colts do enough to round out the supporting cast for rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson? How does his supporting cast situation compare to CJ Stroud's, Bryce Young's, and even Will Levis's? We'll discuss all of that next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your favorite and daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout with the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And I can't talk about championship rings and things without my boy, the champ himself, Mr. LSU, Keith Sanchez. You can find him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in, man. This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, and yes, 2019 national champ. But DP, the reason why we're here is to bring championship level content surrounding the NFL draft. And like we say, man, the draft don't stop, right? There's always more draft prospects, but then we also have to follow up on what just happened in the draft, right? And what happened was this, DP. We had 3 rookie quarterbacks four in the top 40 picks, right? We had quarterbacks selected, but then they also had weapons that were drafted with them, right? Like the general managers say, hey, we have to get these guys some help, man. So with Bryce Young, we had Jonathan Mingo, right, with the Carolina Panthers. Then we had CJ Stroud, right? There was Tank Dell drafted for him with the Houston Texans. Anthony Richardson, right? Josh Downs was selected to help him out. So we want to talk about the rookie QB situations, rank them, and talk about the supporting cast, right? Starting with the rookie wide receiver and how he can immediately help that rookie quarterback out heading into the first year.
Keith, before we even get into those guys, I want to give an honorable mention. This guy he was drafted last year, but his quarterback was drafted this year, and that's Tennessee's Treylon Burks, fitting with quarterback Will Levis out of Kentucky. Keith, of course, Ryan Tannehill still there. Not really sure if they're going to allow, Will Levis to battle for that starting job. I would assume so, since you drafted in the second round, like legit early. I think they moved up for him as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, Keith, how do you, like, for what we saw for Treylon Burks as a rookie wide receiver, what are your thoughts in terms of him fitting with Will Levis's and his skill set for what we saw from him on tape as a prospect?
I actually think what Treylon Burks does, what best fits with what Will Levis does, right? Treylon Burks was not a precise route runner. He was not this guy that was very detailed with running routes. But one thing he had that build-up momentum speed, and he was an excellent jump ball catcher, right? Like you're talking about the 50-50 football. It was 80-20 with him. This guy was physical. He attacked the ball at his highest point. And what do we say about Will Levis? Man, this guy has a rocket arm, right? So I just consistently think about play action, bootleg type situations. Will Levis is able to get depth. He's able to roll out right to a strong arm, launch that thing 50 yards to Treylon Burks, right? Treylon Burks is excellent at tracking the football, go up and get it. And that's kind of your big play wide receiver, right? So I think that's where this is going to fall for Will Levis, and with the utilization of Treylon Burks is like, man, push the guy vertical, right? You find a route runner, find somebody else to run routes, but let this guy be your big play wide receiver. Push him vertical, let him use that big body, let him get down the field, let him track the football, come down with it. And then now there's an explosive element to the Tennessee Titans and this passing game.
Keith, I love that, and I want to add some numbers to it for context, right? In 2022, Will Levis attempted 39 passes of 20-plus yards downfield, completed 16, so that's 41%, average about 14 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions, Keith. And that kind of, that's kind of been his big, even though he's got the big arm, he's never been a true deep ball thrower.
I agree, but I think this is the thing too. when you look at his receiver core at Kentucky, right, they've been relatively smaller wide receivers, right? You talk about Wan'Dale Robinson in 2021, and then the guys that he have now with two, I think it was two freshmen, right?
Yeah.
And they're not big body guys. They may be like 6'190". Treylon Burks is 6'2", 230, right? So this
230,
guy
yeah.
has a wide catch radius. So I'm just expecting not for it to turn all the way around, right? But I
No,
am
yeah.
expecting those numbers to elevate just because of who he's throwing the football to.
No, 100%. That's why I wanted to bring context to it, is because, to your point, Treylon Burks' size and catch radius, which we saw on display at the NFL level, not just we did, during the time in Arkansas, it translated. And I think that would be a big help to Will Levis whenever he does step on the field, Keith. But, you talked about Jonathan Mingo and Bryce Young. You got the first overall pick, and Mingo was one of the first receivers off the board on day 2. I think
He went
they
early.
grabbed him in like
They were
second
aggressive.
round.
Yeah, they were aggressive. They picked him up in the second round. But DP, because it's we can have the discussion, right? But I think with these wide receivers that were selected, talking about Jonathan Mingo, talking about Josh Downs, and Tank Dell, right? We can talk about them, but I think we have to kind of incorporate the rest of the core too, and what is that going to mean, right? Like in the road. So let's discuss. Start with the top, right? Bryce Young, Jonathan Mingo. How do you view that pairing along with the rest of the Carolina Panthers just passing, options, receiving options. Yeah, whether that's running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. How do you view Jonathan Mingo, and how will he help Bryce Young?
Man, I think he helps Bryce Young. He gives him that he's a height, weight, speed prospect, right? 6'2", 220, 4'4", jump 40 inches in the vert or something close to that. Explosive guy and a big body. And that's not something that Bryce is even used to. It's kind of similar to Tua, where Tua had the 4 Lambos. He had guys who separated. He didn't have a lot of big body options that you throw the back shoulder fades to, that you throw the 50-50 balls to in the red zone, that you can isolate and throw the fade to, right? So now Jonathan Mingo gives him another option, because he also will be throwing to Hayden Hurst in the middle of the field, as a tight end spot that they signed this year. And then your boy, TMJ, Terrace Marshall Jr., who's another big body guy. And then you throw DJ Chark, who's also another taller guy, who's more of the deep, like the pure deep threat, the stretch the field type with Adam Thielen. And I think they have Shi Smith as well to kind of work the slot. So I think, we always talk about building your wide receiver like a basketball team. I think that they're kind of doing that. They have their quote unquote center and power forward. They have their kind of slashing guards in terms of the slot guys, right? And then they got their 3-point shooter, which is right now DJ Chark. So I think it's set up pretty good or well enough together for Bryce Young. I think they've set it up pretty well.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see, like you said, because just of the different variants in body types and things like that, and then just knowing Bryce Young last year at Alabama, he had a bunch of small wide receivers, right? That's not the case with this Carolina Panthers team. These are bigger guys. Like all of these guys are plus 6 foot and plus 200 pounds, right? DJ Chark may be right on the edge of that, but he can play at 200 pounds. So I think that's the fun part when you look at this Carolina Panthers team is like, okay, what can Bryce Young do with this skill set that the Carolina Panthers have, and they've provided him from a receiver option. But DP, look, man, we went through 2 guys, right? But we still have 2 left when we're talking about Anthony Richardson, right? And his pairing with Josh Downs. And then we still have to talk about CJ Stroud and his pairing with Tank Dell. So coming up next, man, we're going to address the CJ Stroud, the Houston Texans, the Tank Dell, and the supporting cast, and just talk about some of the things we like, don't like, and just kind of discuss the details of that situation.
What is the number one sports book in America? It's FanDuel. And guys, right now, you can make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs. It's time to make some money, because right now, new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's right. You heard me correctly. $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. What I really love about FanDuel Sportsbook, they have great promotions every single day. The app is safe, secure, and super easy to use, and you get paid instantly. I will say it again. You get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on all the playoff action than America's number one sports book. We have this conference finals right now, guys. So you getting geared up for that. So you want to go ahead and get your bets in. So just go and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Anthony Richardson and Josh Downs, Keith. That situation, it's very this and crazy. They're in the same division. Like going to the Colts, and then you got Houston. Both teams, the Colts and the Texans, drafted their quarterbacks top 4, right?
Mhm.
Top 5.
Yep.
But then they also went in the third round and grabbed themselves a slot receiver for both of these young quarterbacks, Keith. And for me, I love both fits. I've been on record saying that CJ Stroud was the best pure pocket passer, just best pure passer in this class over A-Rich, over Levis, over Bryce for me, all of that. I've also been on record saying my favorite quarterback in this class is Anthony Richardson because I know what I saw on tape and I know that his traits will translate. It translates to the field, and his ceiling is nobody matches his ceiling in this class. Not a Will Levis, no one else. This young man has everything you want. All the things that we know from a scouting perspective, we call it the uncoachables, the unteachables. He has those things, right? So when you look at these two situations, Keith, how do you view them in terms of these two slot receivers going to these two passers?
Yeah, all right. Let's start with the Houston Texans. Let's start with CJ Stroud. Let's start with Tank Dell. The skill set of Tank Dell we know is extremely explosive. So I just think about this, man. Those option routes, right, working in the middle of the field, and then also with this, man, CJ Stroud was a hell of a deep ball thrower. Like you talked about him being one of the best pure passer. So when he lets that thing go, man, like it's a pretty football and it's accurate. Like we've seen some big time throws. So I even think about deep crosses with Tank Dell. So there's gonna be so many different things that they'll be able to do with Tank Dell. But like I said, DP, when we talked about Will Levis, in the last segment, we talking about supporting cast, right? And I pull up and they have Robert Woods, right? They have Nico Collins. They have John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson to be thrown into that, Dalton Schultz, right? So the reason I'm bringing those up is that I don't think Tank Dell has to play multiple roles for CJ Stroud, right? You can give him maybe two things that he does really well, and he'll be able to provide that. So if he's just slot wide receiver, let him do that. Then if he's just explosive playmaker, and we talked about this a little bit, and he reminds me of a Deshaun Jackson light. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying he's Deshaun Jackson, but they're probably very similar when it comes to measurables. I think Deshaun Jackson was like 165 pounds, right? He just might have been 5'10", and Tank Dell is 5'8". So, you're talking about an inch and a half, essentially, or something like that. But he reminds me of that. So you think about, the best usage of Deshaun Jackson, it was when he was pushing vertical, running those post routes, right? Or like I just talked about with Treylon Burks, man, those bootlegs, push the ball vertical. And I think he's going to have a great purpose for CJ Stroud. And then this is the other thing. Tank Dell attacks the ball in the air, right? Like he's a guy that goes and get it. So I don't, once they get to camp and CJ Stroud is able to figure out his skill set, which, we've heard that he told them, hey, go draft Tank Dell for me, right? Don't know how true that story is, but if it's that true, that means CJ is already familiar with this game. So I like it from that perspective, DP, of give him, because of the supporting cast, right? Give him two roles. Let him be your explosive guy, right? Work the middle of the field and then push vertical. And I think it's going to fit perfectly.
No, Keith, and you talked about the deep ball, right? For CJ Stroud, and just with the numbers, Keith, over 50.8, almost 51% completion percentage on 61 attempts, of 20 plus yards downfield. 12 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, Keith. He was a sniper out there. Yes, he had Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison. I get it. I know a lot of people try to use to knock him, but this young man was accurate on all three levels, and I love that. But I'm gonna throw out there one name on that offense that I think CJ Stroud can have a big impact on. Nico Collins. You know what I mean? Just that big body outside, that X receiver that I think CJ can help unlock this young man, because he'll be the first good quarterback he's had probably since high school, Keith, because he didn't have many good quarterbacks at Michigan. So, and he had Davis Mills to start the time off at Houston. So this will be the first quarterback he's had that's probably good since, some time in high school, man. So I'm excited to see that situation, Keith. But I'm going to flip over to Indy. And you talk about, like, perfect fit. Keith, I've used Josh Downs as a perfect fit to this off. To me, he was a missing piece. You had all these towers.
I'm so happy for you to get into this, because people with Anthony Richardson are gonna talk about completion percentage, right? Like that's a thing, and then they're gonna talk about we didn't see him work the middle of the field a lot, right? Like Anthony Richardson film, it wasn't focused on one thing. Like I think when you watched it, you seen a little bit of everything, right? Like you seen like a wide array of just everything. But it was also inconsistent. So Josh Downs, slot wide receiver, a guy that's not a 4.3 speed guy, right? But he has good speed. His short area quickness is really good. With those slot wide receivers, historically, you've had to be accurate with them, right? Because it's tight windows and things like that. So how do you feel Anthony Richardson merging with that situation? Like, is he capable of using a guy like Josh Downs? Because we didn't see it, or the people are going to push against that notion because they're going to talk about accuracy. I want to get your opinion on it.
No, I think he can, Keith. And like you said, just to kind of look at the whole spectrum, the context to that completion percentage thing, Florida was a deep shot like type of offense. Like I think he was third, I believe, in the entire like college football landscape into the yards per attempt and almost 15 yards per attempt in all of FBS. And it's like they didn't really like he had to learn how to read mesh concepts and stuff like that and be patient with the ball and come off of reads and stuff. First year starter, it happens. I do think that he can get the ball to us, Josh Downs, and especially with all those weapons, having Alec Pierce as your Z and then having Michael Pittman as the X, and who Michael Pittman also goes into the slot. It's like a power slot for them as well. But then you go to 12 personnel with Jelani Woods and Mo Alley Cox. Bunch of 6'4", 6'6", big body guys that I expect to see some high-low reads in the middle of the field, Keith, where you have one of those tight ends running kind of a skinny post and pulling that middle of the field linebacker deeper, and then you have the low, which is the catch and run opportunity to a Josh Downs. I expect to see some of that. And I think if you do that with them and those boys, and it goes back to even just mini camp, they talked about it, man. Yeah, first night, the night before practice, we're out in the parking lot throwing the ball to each other, just kind of trying to build that chemistry. And Josh Downs like, man, he's got an arm, like his arm is crazy. So it's like those boys already getting their footing together, and like you said, just coming in together as rookies, it bodes well typically because it's like you're new, I'm new, we can really get this thing together. We're gonna study the playbook together, all of that stuff, man. I think this is a really, really great fit in terms of adding Josh Downs to this offense because they had a bunch of like high catch, helmet or higher, 50-50 ball type of guys, Keith, that can body defenders, but they didn't have a true route runner that could separate and work the shorter portion of the field.
Yeah, and like I said, my initial conversation about the accuracy thing, I think that's the thing I'm going to pay most attention to, right? I'm not saying that I don't think Anthony Richardson is accurate, but just what we didn't see at Florida. Like you said, he was top 5, top 10, and pushing the ball down the field and big play shots. So and I think that was an element that was missing from A. Rich's game, right? And it could have helped that completion percentage. So I think it'll be fun to see the relationship of A. Rich, because when you think about this offense, you think about the pieces that they have around, you think about the run game, right? Like that slot wide receiver is so important when you're talking about, RPO type situations and, him being able to use Josh Downs ability to uncover quickly. I think this relationship is going to be a fun one to really pay attention to. The DP, man, we went through what we've been calling, right? The core 4 quarterbacks, right? The top 4 guys off the board. We talked about their wide receivers. We talked about the pairings. We talked about how we feel about the rookie pairings with them. But DP, listen, man, the Tennessee Titans, right? They've been a topic of discussion because nobody knows what they're doing, right? And people question if they know what they're doing. And part of that is this. We talked about Will Levis, and then we talked about of the wide receiver from last year that was drafted, Treylon Burks. But they also drafted a quarterback last year, Malik Willis, and it appears that they're already over him, right? It was polarizing when he didn't play last year, and I think Joshua Dobbs stepped in, and it was like week 12, 13, 14, something like that. And then it appears that they're just out on Malik Willis. So we want to address the situation of, because this is still a young guy, right? This is a guy going into his second year in the NFL, has all the tools that you may possibly need, right? In a quarterback, big arm, he's mobile, he's an electric runner. That can somebody take him and mold him? So coming up next, man, we're going to just talk about Malik Willis and some of these teams with aging quarterbacks. They may want to take a swing on him and figure it out.
Shout out to our everydayers, man. Everybody that taps in with us every single day, Monday through Friday. I
Yep.
want to show y'all some love before we get into this next segment, talking about Malik Willis, Keith. And I think that the biggest thing is, can he turn it around? And I will say this: we look at it, Geno Smith. We've seen quarterbacks struggle out the gate. We've seen some and turn it around. We've seen quarterbacks come out firing as rookies, and then it doesn't last, right? So it's all about finding the fire that is sustainable. Tennessee was such a weird situation for Malik because Tennessee offense it's just bad. It's just downright bad.
Like, I think that's the part that needs to be addressed, right? The offense, like everything fizzled so quickly, man. Because it seemed like the year before, right? Like we're talking about, this is a team, tough run game, everything else, and they can be like kind of sneak picks for the AFC, right? Like they can run their way to an AFC championship game and catch some people off guard because of the style of football they play. And then last year, right, it was the injury, what I believe, to Tannehill, right? Then it was the offensive line being hurt. I think Taylor Lewan was hurt, and there was a couple other people. It was some downgrades. They traded AJ Brown, so you didn't have him anymore. This thing quickly went from a B-level roster to a D-level roster, right? Like, and when I say B, I'm saying B like ball, and then I'm saying D like down. It was not good, right? I just want people to understand. I want them to get the letters confused, man. And so when you put Malik Willis in that situation, a guy that had some development to do, but you put him in a bad situation, of course it's not going to be good. We continually talk about this, right? That's why we wanted to pay attention to these quarterbacks, right? If the situation is not good, usually you don't get good out. Like you put good in, you get good out. You put bad in, you get bad out. You put them in a bad situation, you're usually going to get bad quarterback play. And not only from the rookies, we see that with the veteran quarterbacks, right? Like we see that with guys that they throw 4,000 or 5,000 yards and then they come back the next year and they throwing 2,500 yards. A la Dak Prescott, right? The reason why Amari Cooper wasn't there anymore, right? It's not the same offensive line. Ezekiel Elliott is not the same guy. So what happened? Dak Prescott, he went throwing 35 touchdowns to throwing 20 touchdowns, and everybody's worrying about he almost led the league in interceptions with him being injured for part of the year. So I think with Malik Willis, DP, there's still more there for him. What I wonder is with an NFL organization giving up after this soon, because Will Levis has a strong arm, right? But Malik Willis' arm is strong enough to where you don't just draft another quarterback because he has a strong arm. So my question or my thought process would be, how does he handle the professionalism of being a quarterback, right? Like what else is there? And I don't know if you know what I'm saying, kind of seen a couple things or, just paid attention to different dynamics. What would be your opinion, just kind of diving into that portion of it?
I felt like the speed of the game really he struggled with, Keith. He played at Liberty, right? Like he would play Power 5 schools every, maybe one or two a year. You know what I mean? Like, but to play those type of teams on a week basis, like if he was in the SEC, the timing or the speed wouldn't be as big of a leap for him. Where you saw him be and Keith, we were we were in Mobile last year. We saw the arm talent this kid has.
Yeah,
we know he can drive the ball, but when you watch them, you see a kid that's not confident because he doesn't know like Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson talked about this much is NFL open. Like, and you could tell that like Malik Willis he didn't know that. Like he see a guy coming open, but he still see a defender like on the end breaker right behind him. And instead of drilling it, he pulled it back.
Yeah, and I want you to continue with your point, but I want to jump in real quick when we're talking about Malik Willis, because I remember evaluating him, right? And I struggled between a 3rd round grade, a 2nd round grade, because you've seen the tools, right? But then the other part was that every big time game, he didn't play well in. I think in the 2021 year, or was it 2020, they played North Carolina State. I think that was a really bad game for him. Virginia Tech was a really bad game for him. And then when they played Ole Miss year before last, right? Like that wasn't good. But you and that's the tough part about evaluating, because it's like, well, obviously he plays at Liberty and they're going against, like Power 5 schools. But it's like, okay, what part do you associate to the quarterback and what part do you associate everything else being bad around him? So I just wanted to say that part, DP, because I agree with you, from one perspective of, just him with the processing. And I noticed that when the game speed turned up, they played against high competition. You didn't see a great Malik Willis.
No, not at all, Keith. It's crazy because you look at the Titans and you're like, man, like, and I've seen all the talks, like, people on social media, like, yeah, no, you got to cut him, you got to get rid of him. I'm gonna bring a name to the table, and mind you, this man is still playing in the NFL. He's a backup, but he still has a job. Nathan Peterman threw 5 interceptions in the first half of his first NFL start. What are we doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're sitting there saying that Malik Willis, you're like, yeah, cut him. Some people think he sucks. I remember seeing tweets that he's the worst rookie QB I've ever seen. And I'm like, there's no chance that you watch Nathan Peterman throw 5 interceptions in the first half of his first NFL
and like
start.
I said, man, that's difficult to do. Let me tell you why. Because you have to throw
you can't even do that on Madden.
Yeah, you have to throw it, but the defenders have to catch it too. Like, so you know what I'm saying? Like that's the difficult part of it.
My man threw a perfect catchable passes to the defense.
Yes, to the defenders. Yes, that is difficult, man. That is difficult. You throw it to people that can't catch the ball, man. But
what are we doing? But no, I think just to as we get close to wrap it up, Keith, I would thought there are a couple of teams that came across my mind that I felt like you could I would like to see them in. Number one is in your neck of the woods, the Saints. Mainly because you get a veteran QB who's a team first guy. He knows, Derek Carr knows, this is my team. Malik Willis isn't coming in taking snaps from me. I don't have to be, remember the quote from Tannehill, oh, it's not my job to get him prepared and all that. What if Alex Smith took that type of approach when the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes? We may not have seen the best of Patrick Mahomes as early because he didn't have a veteran QB in the room to help the coaches get him ready. Right. So I think a Derek Carr would be great for him just for his understanding of the game and being a pro. Right. You said it earlier. Dallas. I think not so much to take Dak Prescott's job, but just as a guy that can learn from a Dak Prescott. Right. And just kind of sit behind a starting quarterback and that he knows I'm not going to play and I get to sit, learn and watch. Right. And then the other one, the Minnesota Vikings. And mainly because Kevin O'Connell.
I like that risk. I like with the Minnesota, because it's probably low risk, high reward. That's the type 100%. Of swings that you take.
He's not playing in 2023. If all things are healthy, right? If Kirk Cousins stays something, Malik Willis is not playing, in 2023. So guess what he gets to do? He gets to sit back and learn from Kirk Cousins. He gets to sit there, and then when he finally does eventually step on the field, right? If they let Kirk Cousins walk, I think after this year, they're voided years in his contract. Keith, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and KJ Osborne. That's his top 4 pass catching options if he takes over the starting job for the Minnesota Vikings. So if anything, I would love to see him in Minnesota where he could sit for a year, learn and be just be a ball of clay to a potter, right? Being formed and shaped in the image of a Kevin O'Connell, and then he can also tailor that offense as we saw with the Jalen Hurts. You've seen it with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, RG3. We've seen it, man. If you tailor the offense to the young man, to these skill set, you can find some type of success. So that's how I look at it. Plus, I think that the Vikings are clearly not going in a direction that we expect after getting ready to supposedly cut Dalvin Cook. I don't really know what's going on in the Twin Cities, but I do believe that they are preparing themselves just in case they do let Kirk Cousins walk. But yeah, man, hey, listen, I want to see him in Minnesota. But guys, listen, we appreciate y'all. As we always say, we love y'all. We appreciate everything, for y'all tapping in with us. As always, what we tell you, go subscribe, follow and subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast every day to tap in with us for the everydayers, man. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen every day, Monday through Friday, every single week. Go leave a 5-star review. We appreciate everything. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow, guys, because we're going to talk more. We're going to have some stock up, stock down, right? We're going to have maybe some, I might look at some Dame's dudes because we got 2024 summer scouting starting, guys. So I've already kind of tapped in a little bit, so I might have some takes for you in terms of Dame's dudes. But yeah, come and join the conversation again tomorrow, guys. You go on Twitter, you can find Keith Sanchez at The Talent Code. I'm Damian Parson, DP_NFL on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.